College football. Here we are doing a live stream on a Saturday night. It's let's see, about 8 o'clock Eastern time. I think I hit it right on the dot. 8 o'clock Eastern time, 7 o'clock Central. And I hope everyone's doing well out there. I apologize again for just hitting up the live stream. I didn't know that I would have this opportunity tonight. It just came out of nowhere. So I do have an opportunity to talk some college football with you. So let's do it. Our phone lines, 860-325-3687, 860-325-3687. So I'm guessing the 9 that jumped on the line this quickly probably follow me, so you know who I am. It's good to see everyone out there. I will be checking out the live chat here in just a second. But if you're stumbling across this for the very first time and you love college football, or if you're the seasonal college football fan, so we've got our hardcore college football fans that are watching all the time, locked in, 24/7, 365. But we've got our college football fans, obviously, that, let's say you watch the NBA. When the NBA season's over, it's summer. So you're out there playing, golfing, doing it, whatever you do, or maybe you watch Major League Baseball. And then football hits and bam, you dive into college football. And that's when we show up. So please check us out. Get yourself set for the 2019 season. I just, in the last couple hours, taking notes and just posted videos that will be available very soon with my LSU and Texas A&M previews. I've released Miami, Florida State, Clemson, Virginia Tech. I'm going to hit the contenders in each conference. Then I'm going to move around and hit some of the other teams and get to as many Power Fives as possible. And yes, predictions are coming. People want predictions, and I love giving predictions. And I've got an announcement to make concerning my weekly predictions that come up this season. I'm not a handicapper. I'm not an odds maker, but I've done fairly well. I'm going to cut a video and post it very soon here in the next week or two where I'm going to outline my prediction record. I'm going to show you year by year, and it's all time stamped and available on YouTube, my prediction record, both in the NFL and in college. And of course, we're going to make those picks again this year. Before I get to the comments section, I would like to remind everyone out there that you can bet on your football games, baseball, basketball, whatever you like, horse racing and so forth. But your site there is betnow.eu. And we've got a special promotional offer that means a whole lot more than betting on football games. So basically, the bonus to you, the offer here, is that if you go through my link that you find in the description section below, use that link next to the hashtag SamStrong. Hashtag SamStrong. It's for an amazingly worthy cause. Bobby from Volunteer Roadshow, his son, has cancer, has received treatment, is doing much better, but still has a long, long road of recovery. So this is an initiative between St. Jude's Hospital, the fine folks at betnow.eu, and a number of YouTubers. So I know Pigskin Pete's involved. I don't know who else is involved. And I was asked to join as well. And certainly that's the least I could do. So you're going to follow my picks during the season. I'm going to give a pick a week, and I'm going to try to grow my account. And then that's going to go on to Sam and his cause and his treatment and the cancer fund that's been set up by, again, St. Jude's Hospital, Bet Now, and Bobby over at Volunteer Roadshow. So that's the least we can do. But you get a 50% bonus in your account. So if you want to throw $100 in there, you get 50 extra bucks to play with and win a lot of money there, hopefully. But you get an extra 50% bonus if you use the promo code, and I should put it on the screen here, MRTV CFB. Makes sense, right? Mark Rogers TV College Football. I almost put a V in there, but I didn't. Forget the V. MRTV CFB. MRTV CFB. That's your promo code to use for 50% additional onto your account. All right, let's talk some college football. And again, LSU and Texas A&M previews are coming very soon. Virginia Tech, Miami, Clemson, and Florida State are done. Of course, we've got all our schedule rankings with our record projections from the spring. We got position previews. I don't even know what the count is on position previews. I bet I've done over 100 position previews. And of course, you guys have been amazing with your support it just gets better and better all the time. All right, let's see who's in the live chat. NCIS Fanatic 21, what's up? Good to see you, man. Justin Firm, good to see you as well. Mike Myrick, a big supporter of Florida State football. What's up to the voice of college football? And there it is. Go Noles. Ramon Jordan, good to see you as well. Jance716. Jance716. I'm sorry, Jance716. I'm sure that's an area code. Jance716. Do you know? Do you guys know what's coming here? Jance716. Jance, I apologize if I've missed your handle on your comments. Oh boy, we got a call coming in. I don't know how this is going to work. This is not going to work well. You can see this is, this is not going to, I'm going to have to, well, we're just going to give it a shot. You guys let me know how this works. I am on the road right now, so this may not work very well. Hey, it's Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, it's Brian Rockwell calling you.
I didn't necessarily think this through. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. Hey, listen, I just want to say that you have a great show on YouTube and good times on Twitter and all that good stuff. And basically, I'm just calling to ask you, my man, your personal opinion. Who will be the first college head football coach to be fired this season?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one. So who's on the hot seat now, combined with who I project to not have such a good time this year? That is a great question that I've not considered. Thanks for 26 on the line. Here we go. Let's go through, well, certainly the obvious choice. Bam. There it goes. Let's go out to the West Coast. USC, Clay Helton. Because it's a combination of where does this coach stand going into the season, then how difficult is the schedule versus how good is his team. And I think USC, they have easily top 15 to 25 talent, but coming off 5-7, hardly anybody right now is a supporter of Clay Helton. The only thing that's going to keep him in play is they're rather cheap at USC, and they may want to extend his contract, not extend the contract, but actually pay him out through the end of this season. That's the first name that comes to mind when I think about coaches on the hot seat, because if you look at USC's first 6 games, BYU, I don't have it in front of me. I got limited resources. My apologies. Limited resources, no mic, no nothing. I'm on the road. So I don't have a whole lot to work with here, and I'm using my laptop as my camera. So I won't be looking up stats or scores or schedules or anything like that. But, the schedule is brutal for USC. Of course, they've got Fresno State out of the gate. They've got a date with Stanford in week 2. They've got Notre Dame in the first 6. They've got Washington in the first 6. Their easiest game is BYU. USC could play decent football and be 2-4 after 6 games. And I would think after 5-7 and with top 15 talent in the country, that Clay Helton would be in a bad place. So Clay Helton out of the gate. I think the Big 12 is full of coaches that are either succeeding or there's a lot of promise there, like the Matt Rules of the world, the Matt Campbells, the Big 12 coaching fraternity, the current core of coaches in the Big 12 are faring rather well, if you really think about it. The Big Ten, who would be on the hot seat in the Big Ten? Again, the Big Ten Western Division is on the rise. Look at the trajectory of all the teams in the Big Ten West. They're either in good standing like a Wisconsin, or they're heading upward like a Northwestern coming off the conference championship game, and their facilities are phenomenal. I was just watching a Northwestern, whatever the Big Ten Network's version of the behind the scenes with Northwestern, and their new facilities are phenomenal. So Northwestern's trending up. Minnesota, the Big Ten Western Division's in great shape. Another call coming in here. So Clay Helton's choice number 1 on the hot seat that could get fired this year. Hey, it's Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, how you doing this morning?
I am doing just great. Hey, DeAndre, let me ask you this before you get started. Did you hear the first call that we got in?
No, I missed it.
Okay, I just
saw that you was up there.
Yeah, I was just checking on the audio because I'm on the road. I've got nothing with me, and I just want to make sure that people can hear the call. So I'm trying to put it as close to the speaker as possible. All right, DeAndre, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm good. Irritated.
Oh boy. Okay.
I've been here. I have some friends that are Georgia Bulldogs fans, and so we get in this conversation. They tell me that Clemson and Georgia is now rival. And let me tell you something. These are fake Georgia Bulldogs fans because a lot of them like Miami with kids. I said I got pictures to prove it. I told them that the other day, and they said Clemson and Georgia is now rival. I said, man, some of the most classic games was between Clemson and Georgia. And one of them tells me that Georgia would not have lost to Clemson like Alabama did. Matter of fact, they said they would call Georgia the winner. Georgia probably would beat Clemson. I said, how do you figure that when Georgia was one of the most least producing sack teams in the country last year, and Alabama couldn't even get close to Clemson. So I would wonder what's your take on that.
Well, my take is, first and foremost, in terms of the rivalry, I'm scanning the country for previous rivals that no longer exist. So, DeAndre, we've talked 80s and 90s football a ton with you. And so would you consider Nebraska and Oklahoma a rivalry? Would you consider Texas and Texas A&M a rivalry?
Well, I still would because I remember those games.
Sure.
Now, Texas A&M was a little bit different because I think they should still be playing. I don't know why they can't work that out, but I don't know why Georgia and Clemson started playing. Like somebody brought up to me, Georgia and Florida is a pretty recent new rivalry because before they went to divisions, they didn't play that much. Am I correct?
You are correct. I would have to verify it because there were 10 teams in the SEC.
Florida and Tennessee, I mean.
Florida and Tennessee.
Was a pretty new rivalry. Yeah.
Yeah, there were 10 teams in the SEC at the time before Arkansas and South Carolina joined in 1991, and they played 8 conference games typically in an 11-game schedule, so you would miss a couple teams in the conference.
Yeah, and like I said, and like I tried to explain to them too, like they said Alabama's their rival. I said Alabama and Georgia rarely play unless it was before that SEC championship.
Yep.
I mean, I know in the 50s and the 60s, because they had some type of scandal, they went a long time without playing.
Yeah, they are not rivals. Now, if Alabama and Georgia continue to dominate that conference, I would consider it a rivalry. Let's say they play in 5 SEC championship games in the next 7 years. It could develop into a rivalry because they're battling. Anytime 2 teams own a conference, it kind of becomes a rivalry. Ohio State and Michigan, for years and years. Oklahoma, Nebraska for years and years and years. That's geography makes rivalries, and also teams battling for the same championship over and over and over creates rivalries. And so it could become one, but no, Alabama and Georgia are not rivals. They play once every 7 years in the regular season.
Right. So, how's Justin Fields looking? Are you hear anything about the camp or come out of Ohio State?
Well, fortunately for me, over the last 2 days, I've not thought much about football. I have done a little work late at night here and there, but I really have not heard anything. We'll have our big Ohio State show on Wednesday night, so we've got 3 different writers who go to Ohio State practice and ask all the questions and talk to Ryan Day and the folks just about every day. So we'll have them on to see what their current take is on Justin Fields.
Oh, yeah, man. I can't wait for a couple of weeks. I've been watching other shows because, I love to bet, trying to get there, what other teams are doing. Florida's better than what I thought they were. I watched Florida Vanderbilt last year, and I don't watch every game. And I said, "Hey, these dudes suck." And I would listen to somebody from another podcast,
and he's a Georgia fan. He was saying that Florida might have the second best or the third best receiver corps in the SEC.
So yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, their receivers are really good. Van Jefferson and company, Tyreek Cleveland, very good receivers at Florida. Their issue is going to be offensive line. And Felipe Franks had a good year last year. He was a good quarterback. Will he take another step in the Dan Mullen system, which Dan Mullen is a guru at developing quarterbacks? So those are their two, certainly their issues. And then defensively, they're not as good as they've been in the past. They're very good, but they're not going to be a vintage Florida defense. I still think that they're a year or two away.
Right. Yeah, because I brought that up because a lot of people are picking Georgia, and Georgia's schedule is so tough.
Yep.
And I said, they A&M, they got and I think A&M is going to either get close to Alabama or Georgia. They're going to get one of those three teams. And I told somebody this, and a lot of people disagree with me, but I don't think that the SEC is going to get anybody in this year because the schedule was so tough. Because you got to look at Auburn, how good their offensive line, defensive line is. The offensive line returning a lot of players. I know the offensive line was kind of terrible last year, but they still coming back, so they got experience. Texas A&M, Mott and those receivers. I mean, I really think everybody at SEC is going to have two losses this coming up here.
So what's going to be interesting, DeAndre, is the respect that the SEC gets. So if we get a year that you're starting to outline where there are one-loss conference champions elsewhere and the SEC could get knocked out with a two-loss conference champion, we'll see how much respect the SEC champion gets in that scenario.
Yeah, we'll see. But I honestly think it's going to be Clemson, A&M or Oklahoma, Texas or Oklahoma, Oregon or Washington, and Ohio State or Michigan. I don't think the SEC team is going to get in there this coming up here.
Okay.
And not because I think the SEC sucks. I just think that they're going to the conference is just like this. One of those years where everybody's playing everybody, and everybody's schedule is so top heavy because Georgia still got to compete with Notre Dame and their schedule in Florida, and Florida got Miami. They could have two losses and then upset somebody. I mean, it's just amazing what's going on, and everybody keeps, and until we see it, everybody's talking about how revamped LSU offense is going to be this year, and they both have a good receiving core.
So if you could find a prop bet, DeAndre, in Vegas, you could win yourself a ton of money. If you could find a prop bet that left out the SEC out of the college football playoff.
Oh yeah, I've been looking. I've been looking on the wheel for it. I was at Caesar's resort betting line the other day and looking down the list. Because I was looking at some of the prop bets for wins this year, and one jumped off at me. Illinois and Syracuse. I think Illinois could win 5 games this year. And I think they was 4.5. And I think Syracuse is a 7. They said they were going to win 7 games. I think they're going to win more than 7 games this year.
Okay,
so with I put some money in there.
With Syracuse's schedule, yeah, I don't think they're going to be a really good team. But with their schedule, as easy as it is outside of Clemson, and we'll see about Florida State and NC State, we were looking at their schedule the other day. That's another post we just had the other day with John Casillo from SB Nation. We were looking at Syracuse and looking at the schedule. And, they have 4 very winnable non-conference games. They should be the favorite in all their non-conference games, excluding maybe at Maryland. That might be a bit of a toss-up, but they should be the better team still. So they could go 4-0 out of conference, and then there you go. You only have to go 3-5 in the ACC, and you've got your 7-5 record.
Right.
They're going to win all the non-conference games.
Oh yeah, that's true. And another thing, I know a lot of people think I'm crazy for saying this. I think Florida State going to be a hell of a lot better next year. I mean, I don't know what went on down there. But I really think Florida State's going to win 10 games this year. And the other team I see them losing to is Clemson, Florida, or Clemson to Miami. I really think they're going to be, at least 9-3 this year. I think they're going to be a whole lot better than what people are expecting them to be. And it's amazing what that program is going through down there. And I really think they're going to be better. He got all that talent. Those players that skilled players and defensive players that Jimbo recruited, they're still there. Their offensive line was just suck. I don't know why they're having so many offensive line problems, but that's a lot just suck. And when the recruiting that Clemson is doing right now at defensive end and defensive tackle, they better get it together. Next year Clemson is going to have 3 on the strong side and weak side, rotating in and out, and they're going to make a mess out of somebody next year. This year they're going to be really good too, but next year I don't know who's going to block them. But I appreciate you letting me call in, Mark. Enjoy yourself wherever you at. And I'll be listening to the show, sir.
Thanks, DeAndre. I appreciate it. Our man DeAndre loves his Clemson football, talks ACC with us all the time, and it's always fun to talk football with DeAndre. He goes back to the 70s, 80s, 90s, and we kick it around about the old games too. I don't know that I can get on board with Florida State going 10-2, though. So Clemson, almost an automatic loss in Death Valley. As he mentioned, Florida or Miami, if they lose to one of those two, there you got 2 losses. They got to play Boise State on opening night. They also have that Atlantic division at the ACC is not loaded with elite, really, really good teams, but it's also loaded with very capable teams. Wake Forest, Boston College, NC State, all those teams are very capable, and Syracuse as well. So Florida State's going to have a number of very difficult games within its division. They have to play Virginia in addition to Miami in the other division. Hey, it's Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's McD Sports 4.
MCD Sports 4. What is going on?
Mark, the reason why I'm calling is because of something you said with the last caller. Syracuse is not going to win all the non-conference.
Okay. You know what? I will let you continue. I will let you continue in just a second. I knew as soon as that came out of my mouth that you would take exception to that. I just flashed through my mind. I thought MCD Sports 4, if he's on the line right now, he is not going to let me get away with that comment. I did say earlier in the conversation, so I had a little typo of the mouth. I'm not guaranteeing that Syracuse is going to beat Maryland. I said that they might be a slight underdog on the road. I also said that it was a toss-up game. I would still consider, something drastic would have to change between now and when that game's played, which I think it's a week 2 game, for me to think of it as anything other than a toss-up.
Okay. Well, I'm going to make an argument real quick right now. It's going to win that game. And this is an easy argument, actually. 2 reasons. One, Syracuse is working out a new quarterback, and they're on the road, and it's back-to-back road games. And 2, it's a trap game because the week after they play us, they get Clemson at home, and they're going to be looking at that game until it comes. So I think Maryland's going to beat Syracuse probably by a touchdown, but that's my argument.
Okay, MCD Sports 4, you've been listening to me for quite a long time, and we've had some good college football conversations, obviously, and some debates here and there. So I don't let people off the hook when they just throw stuff out there. So somebody would have to prove to me. I understand the concept of a trap game. I don't think I need to explain that to the audience. You guys all love college football and football in general, and know what a trap game, the concept of a trap game. However, I'm going to liken it to what they say about NFL division games, that they're more unpredictable, that there are more upsets. But I've never seen any data to back this up. If somebody could bring me data that actually showed that the trap game exists in reality, not just based on the figment of our imaginations that we think it exists. I would love to see statistics that prove that there is such a thing as a trap game. I understand the concept. We've all grown up with that's a trap game. That's the trap game because that's the week before they play Alabama or whatever. But I would love to see the verification of the trap game. It can't be verified. That's what I'm telling you. It can't be verified.
Okay.
It could be. If somebody really wants to do the research, then they would have to define how good the teams need to be for it to be a trap game and have to go through all that. But I understand your concept, MCD Sports 4. It makes sense, and people talk about trap games. And so the week after the Syracuse-Maryland game, Syracuse plays Clemson.
Clemson.
Yeah.
At home.
It's just like for Clemson, maybe that's a trap game because they're playing Texas A&M at home the week before. But you would think that based on what happened the last 2 years against Syracuse, so I'm following the trap logic here. I'm playing it out to a T. For Clemson, their trap game would be Syracuse the week after Texas A&M, typically. But considering that they struggled the last 2 years against Syracuse, Syracuse should be on their radar and shouldn't be able to jump up on them and sneak up on them.
True. I do think Syracuse is going to be a 7, 8, 9-win team this year. So I'm not saying Syracuse is bad or anything. I'm just saying Maryland should have the advantage if you follow the trap game concept.
Well, I will make a prediction the week of the game. I can't tell you right now. Between Syracuse and Maryland, that's a toss-up to me.
I agree. I think it's 50-50, but I'm rolling with the Terps. I might be homing a little bit on that, but
you think so?
I'll be rolling with the Yeah, I mean, I kind of do Syracuse as like Syracuse is kind of the Maryland of the ACC to a degree.
In what way?
They have a really good offense, and the defense is bad. But you can also say the same thing about Wake Forest as well. So
I got to tell you, MCD Sports 4, off subject, these chairs in these hotel rooms are very uncomfortable. I don't know how long this live stream is going to go. But we do have 42 on the line, 43 now. Anything else on your mind?
Nah, I mean, I was just going to lay back and listen until something got said that was incorrect and happened during the show. So I have to go tend my sick dog. So
sick
I have
dog.
to let you go.
I hope not too sick.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, see you.
All right, man. Have a good night.
Press 1 to start the call or 2 to decline.
All right. Hey, it's Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who do we have on the line?
How you doing, Marcus Ramon?
Hey, Ramon. How are you?
Good. Just to piggyback off what he was saying, about how you were saying there's no logical data to support, the legitimacy of the trap game.
Yeah.
What I have to say is even more so than that, if Syracuse is of the mindset that they've arrived to the point where they can even look ahead at Clemson, then I completely mistake Dino Babers for who I thought he was in the first place. And I think he's a lot better of a coach than that. More importantly, I don't think that they feel in any way, shape, or form that they have some sense of entitlement that they can even look ahead to Clemson before Maryland game. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but
based on everything I've witnessed out of Dino Babers and heard him approach this season in particular at ACC kickoff, I'm right on there with you. I think the guy's doing an exceptional job. I need to see it happen again, not necessarily to back up his legitimacy. It's a difficult job. You're playing in a conference that's basically centered in the South with all that talent. And there is a semblance of talent in New York State in particular, and obviously in Pennsylvania is a good state for football, and New Jersey. So he does have an area there that he can work with, but it's been a difficult job to win at. And I just want to see it happen again for him. But even in those 4-8 seasons with the Virginia Tech win, with the Clemson win, and a few other efforts, we could see this coming. So it took him a while to establish his offensive system there. And I think he talks a great game. I think he's great for the kids. I think he's running a great program right now. And yes, he will do everything under his control, knowing that he cannot overlook Maryland. Therefore, his team can't. And I'm sure he will go through all sorts of coaching techniques to make sure that that doesn't slip by his team.
Right. You know, also another thing with Dino, and I hate to compare coaches because everybody's their own person, their own man. But, you know, I was looking at, you know, Dino's, you know, his consistency of his recruiting. And, you know, he's still pretty much hovering around the same number rankings that they were, you know, with his, you know, whoever was the coach before him, I can't remember his name. He's still, you know, hovering around the same number ranking annually. But, you know, I guess it's more so with him, it's more so not about where they're ranked as opposed to it being your guys. Because, you know, I was kind of following the trend over there at Kentucky, you know, with Stoops. And he's still been pretty much in that low 40s, high 30s average rank over there. And I think, you know, even though he's been getting pretty much the same yearly annual ranking that his predecessor had, it's about, you know, with guys like him and, you know, with other guys like Gary Patterson and Kirk Ferentz, I guess it's more so about, you know, it being their guys and the people who have the same mindset and character standpoint, if you get what I'm going with that.
Absolutely. So there's a collection of teams across the country. We bring them up all the time, and you hit on two: TCU, Kansas State at another time under Bill Snyder, Michigan State, Wisconsin, teams that certainly play way over their heads in regards to looking at the recruiting rankings, where they're typically ranked and where they typically rank nationally. The one thing I will say, go back, Ramon, and look at, let's say, the 4 or 5 recruiting classes before Mark Stoops. I think you're going to find that they were in the 55 to 60 range. They had awful recruiting classes for SEC standards. And then he got them into the mid to high 30s, low 20s. He's done very well.
Well, yeah, I mean, and one thing I will say that the class he has this year definitely shaped up to be the best he's had. You know, he's got some offensive line talent and some skill player guys. He's got that kid Justin Rogers from, I believe he's from Michigan, offensive tackle committed right now, and a couple other big time guys. But yeah, I wasn't even going to call in. I mean, it was just when I heard that thing about, you know, the trap game, and I'm like, if Syracuse is in any way, shape, or form, but the mindset that they can look past anybody right now, then you know they're going to be going backwards real soon. But I didn't think that was the case. I just wanted to get there.
Yeah, I am not saying that the trap game does not exist. I would just love to see confirmation that it actually plays out statistically, because I have yet to see that, but everybody just assumes that they can pick out trap games and that means something.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and just one thing before I let you go, you know, as a Miami fan, you know, we played our last regular season game against Pittsburgh, you know, 2 years ago before we got crushed.
Yep.
You know, and, you know, by Clemson. But I mean, to that point, I mean, unless you want to count that being a trap game, but to that point, I mean, we had beat, you know, our toughest competitors, you know, at Florida State and Georgia Tech and all the other teams that have given us fits for years. So I mean, you know, what was their reason for not being flat? So I mean, you know, there's so many different ways you can spin it. It's all situational, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we tend to put these tags or these labels on situations. And again, there's validation there somewhere. It does happen. There are different levels of motivation. It's like when we talk about bowl games and try to point at teams and say that one's motivated, that one's not. Absolutely, but there are different motivation levels during the entire season, not just bowl games. Yeah, they're a little bit more amplified during the bowl season, but just this blanket kind of analysis that, you know, everyone who underachieves goes to a bowl game and then they're not motivated, or to try to get into the hearts and minds of 100 kids playing on a football team. The motivation for each individual is actually different. If you took any football team, it's not like every kid, oh, that's a motivated football team. Well, every kid's motivated at 100%. No, there are varying levels from individual to individual. So it's a lot more complex than that. But yeah, I understand the concept of the trap game. I would just love to see somebody actually quantify it, number one. Then they would have to run the numbers, and I would love to see how that is statistically backed up.
Oh yeah, that'll be the next thing that they talk about when they do analytics. You know, we've already got the havoc rate at the forefront. Now the next thing in the next couple of years will be trap game variables. You know?
So Ramon, you bring up recruiting. This is another thing that I would love to see a metric on. We see the recruiting rankings. Well, what we need to see is them be re-ranked after that class has played a full career. And then that would be fascinating to see. And it would be difficult, especially with offensive linemen. You would have to look at like all conference selections, and certain linemen are good. They're decent players, and other ones would be complete busts, and you would have to try to differentiate. But generally, if you could come up with a grading system and you would re-rank the classes, then it would be fascinating to see 4 years later how well did the fifth ranked class in the nation actually play like the fifth ranked class, or did it play like the 23rd ranked class?
Well, yeah, definitely. And one more thing that I've wanted to see for a while, you know, Rivals, they have that. Every recruiting site has a point system, but I'm most familiar with Rivals because that's in the longest standing that I've known about. You know, since my time following it, you know, they usually, you know, somebody that's a 5-star player, you know, I think it's usually with a 6.1 or something like that, and a low 4 or a high 4-star is like 5.9, 5.8. I would like to see a system that plays out over the years that shows on average what schools get a player that, you know, might have been a 4.5 or something like that to play more in the range of the high 5s or low 6s, and what schools actually underdeveloped guys that are, you know, 6.0 or 6.1, they play more in that 5-point range.
Okay.
Yeah, so just one of my curiosities about it. But, you know, as long as analytics exist, there'll be more and more measurements and things for us to spin around about over the years. So that's just my take on it.
Absolutely. All right, Ramon.
So, all right, Mark.
I appreciate the support, man. You too. You have a great night. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We do this just about every day, not necessarily the live call-in show, but I appreciate you guys jumping online when I did not send out a notification. This was very, very unexpected as some plans fell through, but all is good. And I will be on the line for who knows how long. So I appreciate 42 on the line right now. Please leave your comments at the live chat. We will post as many on the screen as possible. And of course, you can call in at 860-325-3687. Also want to let everyone know again about our sign up on betnow.edu. It's for the hashtag Sam Strong Fund. It's a joint venture between a number of YouTubers, including myself, St. Jude's Hospital, and volunteer roadshow Bobby there and his son fighting cancer, and to take care of some of those medical bills. So if you go down into the description section below, grab the link if you'd like to bet on football. You grab that link, you sign up to betnow.eu, you get a 50% bonus added to your account. You throw in $100, you get 50 more to play with for free. And this helps support the fund set up by Volunteer Roadshow. All right. We will get back to it here. Also want to remind everyone that we've got plenty of videos out there to watch. Check them out. Yes, I will have predictions coming very soon. I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to do the predictions. Do I do the game-by-game model that I see so many other people doing, game by game by game, or just say, hey, Florida's going to go 9-3 and they're going to go 5-3 in the SEC, and there are your standings. All right. I saw a comment earlier that Alabama's schedule was no more difficult than Clemson's last year. I don't really see how that could be possible, but I'd have to go game by game and really size it up. They, of course, both play Texas A&M. All right, hey, it's Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, this is Jan 716.
Hey, man, how are you?
I'm doing all right, Mark. I just have a couple of questions that just been bothering me, and finally I can talk to you about them. The first question is, do you believe, since the ACC is projected as possibly being the worst Power 5 conference this year, do you think it's a possibility that a one-loss Clemson team, even though they win their conference championship, will miss the playoffs despite their loss potentially going, coming from a opponent like an A&M or a Syracuse, or maybe some sort of trap game for them? Do you think that it's a possibility that they'll miss the playoffs?
So it's a great question. And so I need to know whether you fall into one of two camps. You've got your camp over here that says the College Football Playoff Selection Committee is doing all that they can to be neutral, to be unbiased, and to try to deliver a Final Four that is merely based on just this season's results. And they don't think about how good is this program? What did they do last year? Did they get embarrassed in the playoffs? Should we leave them out? And of course, you're talking about a team that won the national championship just last year and has 2 in 4 years. So, or do you believe that they, whether admittedly or not, whether it's even uttered in the room, that in between their ear holes, they're thinking, okay, this is Clemson. If Virginia won the ACC with absolutely no playoff track record and no recent, status of elite level play, but they won the ACC at 12-1. They won the conference championship game and went 12-1, and it had, your scenario played out. Would Virginia be treated much different than Clemson? I think most of us think so. Most of us believe so. That even though based on just one season's play, and that's all should be judged, that Virginia should be judged similarly to Clemson as a one-loss ACC champion, but most of us don't believe that's the case. Therefore, I think Clemson would definitely get the benefit of the doubt.
Okay. I'm going to throw this one in here. Just like depending on the scenarios for the other college football teams out there. So let's say Georgia, they have to compete with Georgia for potentially a spot in the college football playoffs. Do you think that? I'm trying to think because I kind of forgot, but do you think that just looking at the situation, okay, I have Georgia here, a team that possibly can run the table. They can go 12-0, go to the SEC championship game. They lose to Bama, but it's a very, very close competitive game. And looking at Georgia's track record the last 3 years, this is one of the most talented football teams, and this is the team that we know can compete at an elite level compared to Clemson that has a national championship record.
So your question is basically, if it comes down to Georgia and Clemson, who would get the nod?
Yeah, or potentially Ohio State or just any of the other elite type schools that a lot of the preseason polls has projected.
Well, I think we're dealing with a moving target. The first year of the college football playoff, conference championships meant a ton, and strength of schedule and strength of wins. And then we got to 2015. I'm trying to think what the snag was there, but we certainly got to 2016, and the conference championship model was seriously took a hit when you not only had a non-conference champion make it in Ohio State, they actually lost to the conference champion Penn State. So then obviously over the next couple years, you had one-loss Ohio State teams that missed the playoffs, and that bad loss really came into play. So then we started to see that, and now the committee seems to have gotten to a place where they constantly talk about we're looking at all these metrics, but we're also watching the games, and we are simply going to select the 4 best teams.
Okay.
So the status of the programs that you bring up are very comparable. So I don't know that there's a big advantage given to one over the other. We just saw a situation last year, Ohio State versus Oklahoma. Who would make it? Who's got a more prestigious program, Ohio State or Oklahoma? Well, they're on the same level, both now and historically. It's not like they were comparing Ohio State and TCU and Baylor like they were in 2014. So
Yeah.
So they basically, it came down to, even though it could be argued that Ohio State played in a little bit better conference and a little bit better competition in wins, possibly, that Oklahoma did not suffer that awful loss that Ohio State did. And that certainly was the deciding factor.
Okay.
So I don't know if I'm answering your question. You're basically looking at Georgia, Oklahoma,
No, yeah,
Ohio
you are,
State,
you
and
are.
Clemson, just in regards to, in terms of cachet, they're all generally equal. Now, if you're looking for television ratings, again, I'm not saying this is considered by the committee, but certainly there are conspiracy theorists out there who believe that they're looking at TV ratings and trying to select. They would have selected Ohio State last year. They were looking at TV ratings because Ohio State, in particular, in the Big Ten, get as good at TV ratings as the SEC, and those are the two dominant conferences if you look at TV numbers by far. So I would say that the College Football Playoff Selection Committee had a very difficult job. I complain about their decisions at times, but I would have to say that it appears to me that they're trying to get it right. It doesn't appear as though they necessarily have an agenda. I just think that they have a moving target of criteria. And who knows what the next one's going to be.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with you on that one. My last question is, if Jim Harbaugh, if Michigan can't beat Ohio State in Ann Arbor this year, should Jim Harbaugh be on the hot seat?
What's his, okay.
for next season?
Oh, yeah, he'll be on the hot seat. Somebody asked me that a couple weeks ago. They asked me if he was going to get fired if he lost to Ohio State. Well, my first question was, is he losing to Ohio State in a 11-1 or 10-2 season, or is he losing to Ohio State going 7-5? And for as big as that game is, that there still is a difference, a large difference in looking at the entire picture of how Michigan would evaluate Jim Harbaugh. Even if it would be a huge disappointment for Michigan, if they arrived at that game with a Big Ten championship, at least on the Eastern side, on the line, and they lost again. But believe me, he's not getting fired if they go 10-2 and lose to Ohio State. But to your point, I definitely agree that puts him on the grill for 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they can't lose to Ohio State for 5 consecutive years and him not be on the hot seat, even if he has a good record.
Especially with all that returning talent, that Michigan has, and the fact that you're now innovating your offense and you're playing in Ann Arbor against a new head coach, I definitely think you have to be on the hot seat for 2020.
Yeah, this seems to be the year, doesn't it? New head coach, new quarterback, and playing in Ann Arbor. Although Michigan loses most of its defensive stars, not all of them, but they lose quite a bit of talent on that side of the ball.
Yeah, that's going to be very hard to replicate, especially losing guys like Chase Winovich, Devin Bush.
The interesting thing about the Ohio State-Michigan scenario from last year, and I don't know who, somebody posed the question and was like, how could anyone think that Michigan was better than Ohio State going into that game? And I said, my goodness, look at how similar their schedules are, obviously playing in the same division. Look at all the results of all the games Ohio State and Michigan played against common opponents last year, and there was no comparison. Michigan played much better against almost everyone that was a common opponent. I think the only similar result was Michigan beat Michigan State 21-7. Ohio State beat them 26-6. And if you watched the games, the Ohio State win was more of a special teams kind of deal. They certainly had the better team on the field, but that was not a dominant win, 26-6, even though that was the score, where Michigan held Michigan State under 100 yards of total offense. It took a Michigan State interception to put 7 points on the board. And every other game, for example, Ohio State had to escape against Nebraska, 36-31 at home. Michigan beat Nebraska 56-10. They wiped out Maryland. Ohio State needed the failed 2-point conversion to squeak by Maryland, and on and on. Penn State, Michigan annihilated Penn State. Ohio State needed 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns to pull out a 27-26 win. Michigan played better against every opponent that was a common opponent than Ohio State did. But then they met on the field, and that's all that matters, is that Ohio State was much better on that day.
Yeah, it's like that. Like just following up to your point, it's like they couldn't match up with Ohio State's athleticism. They couldn't match up with their speed, and it's funny because like you look at some of these other opponents that played Ohio State over the last couple of years, and some of the teams like Northwestern and Iowa, and some of these other schools that have had success against them. It almost seems like Michigan, they just couldn't. It was just a bad matchup. Like you got Paris Campbell and you got some of these other speedy Ohio State receivers, and they're in the slot and they're running drag routes, and they could not keep up with their speed, their athleticism. Michigan on the offensive side of the ball, when we started running a whole bunch of pro-style concepts, Ohio State's speed was one of the biggest major factors why they just absolutely dominate Michigan. And so it's almost like for Jim Harbaugh, it's like when are you going to adapt and try to get to that level and try to match up with them? And,
He's trying. He's trying.
It's almost just can't do it for some reason.
I think defensively their scheme just doesn't make a whole lot of sense for that game and for games like it. They play a very vanilla defense in which they just believe in their athletes being better than the other team's athletes. But when it's Ohio State, they're either on an even plane, or it certainly can be proven that Ohio State's on a slightly higher plane of athletes. And they don't even try to mix it up. It's all man-to-man. It's very vanilla man-to-man, and they get shredded. You would think that, and I'm a believer in defensive football at the college level, and we saw this with Ohio State last year, that they were too exotic, and it confused them, and they were out of position. If you've got the better athletes, then you play fairly vanilla. But against Ohio State, throw them a zone coverage once in a while. Mix it up. Try to confuse Dwayne Haskins a little bit. But my goodness, they rely on the pass rush and one-on-one coverage in the secondary, and it's just brutal. Like you say, they run those crossing routes, and unless you get some contact made by the DB when they're coming out of their break, or that they can read which direction they're going, that elite wide receiver is going to, like a Paris Campbell, and we saw it with Chris Olave a number of times. As soon as they get out of their break, they're going to have a 4 to 6 yard lead within a split second. And for a quarterback like Dwayne Haskins, that's just like pitch and catch.
Oh yeah, it's just like just watching it last year. I'm like, just looking at Michigan type of different concepts where they actually would play zone coverage against some of the other teams that run similar spread concepts and RPOs, and compared to how they play against Ohio State, it's almost like it was just more bragging rights that, okay, we have to win using man-to-man coverage instead of actually going back to what we normally do, which made our defense successful. And it's like they just go out of their comfort zone to try to beat Ohio State in their own game, and you're not going to beat them that way.
Chance, who do you root for?
I'm more neutral. I'm more neutral. My mom, she's a Michigan fan. My grandfather's a huge Ohio State fan. It's a rivalry between for some reason inside of our family. But I'm more of a neutral person. I don't want to get into that.
Okay, I was just curious. And again, you might have heard my comment early in the show that I saw your name listed, and you had an interesting comment. And I got to tell you, and I hope, and I apologize if I've missed you. In the past, I've not recognized your handle, and I hope you can appreciate that we got, fortunately, thousands of people that watch these videos. So for whatever reason, I didn't recognize your handle. So welcome to the channel. We appreciate you to watching and commenting.
Yeah, we actually talked about Michigan, Ohio State. We actually had a video we actually had a discussion about it back, I think it was after the game.
Okay.
It was a while. It was like back in November, but
yep.
it's been a while. But
good stuff.
Yeah, you definitely had to call in and definitely ask some football questions. It's right around the corner. We're
Yeah, absolutely.
about 3 weeks away.
Oh yeah, we're getting there very soon. Right,
Well,
Chance?
thank you for letting me call on the show, Mark.
Absolutely, we appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
All right, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Again, if you love to bet the games, betnow.eu. Use the promo code MRTVCFB. Use the link that we've got provided in the description section below. A number of people will comment typically in the live chat. Please like the videos if you enjoy what we do here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, even if you don't agree with me. Do you like what we do? We talk college football each and every day with the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the industry. And then, of course, analysis from myself as well. So please give me a like. It only takes about 3.5 seconds to execute the like button.
The call will start at the beep.
All right. It's Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Yo, Steve Rod.
Oh, there he is. What's going on, man?
Not much. It's good to finally see your live shows.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh man, we love them. You just gotta know when they're on, you know.
Well, we're working on that. I apologize for that, and certainly I enjoy and I very much appreciate that you guys catch up to them so soon. When I just believe me, I had plans tonight. People got sick. We had some issues, so I'm just throwing up the live stream because we can. But I do need to figure out a schedule for the season. We will work on that.
Yeah, perfect.
All right,
Yeah,
sir.
I'll
What do you got
definitely
tonight?
Be on board. But yeah, I have, I guess, a couple of very interesting points I want to make, since you were talking about Ohio State and Michigan previously. I really think that people personally have forgotten Penn State exists in that conference.
Yes.
I know that Michigan and Ohio State, sorry, Michigan, because I don't like Michigan, but Michigan, Ohio State, those two teams are always hyped up, talked about. But, Penn State is an all-time good program, and then people kind of have forgotten them completely. I mean, I believe that they had a couple of good years this decade, but they just, I just feel like people need to start talking about them a little bit more. It could be that they don't have as much talent this year either, and their recruiting has not been keeping up to par with Michigan and Ohio State. But right now, man, it looks like it's all Michigan and Ohio State that people will be talking about for years to come. What are your thoughts on Penn State, the state of the Penn State program, and do you think they can bounce back, I guess?
So leading up to just the past few seasons, the last time Penn State was really relevant on the national scene is they had a Big Ten championship team that went to the Rose Bowl in 2008. Then the next season, they barely missed out on the Big Ten title, and they beat LSU in a New Year's Day bowl game. Then they slumped in Paterno's last years, and they weren't awful. They had some decent teams, but then of course the scandal and Bill O'Brien takes over. They go 8-4 surprisingly, and then 7-5. James Franklin comes in, and he posts a couple 7-6 seasons. Then they had that breakthrough after losing to Pitt and losing to Michigan by 32 points. They had that breakthrough in 2016. They went on that great run. They pulled off the big upset against Ohio State as a 17-point underdog and went to the Rose Bowl. They won the Big Ten title, beat Wisconsin, and went to the Rose Bowl, played that classic game against USC and Sam Darnold, 52-49. The next year, they won the Fiesta Bowl. They finished in the top 10 in the nation in 2017. So those are two back-to-back top 10 teams. They finished in the top 10 both years. And then last year, because of the bowl loss, they finished just outside the top 10, about 14 or 15 in the nation. So they've had 3 consecutive top 15 teams. They're very good.
I feel like people will start talking about them and actually caring about how relevant they are in the Big Ten if they not win a playoff, but qualify for a playoff.
Yes.
I think they don't even have to win the conference. I mean, obviously you'd want to win the conference 9 times out of 10 because you're not guaranteed, but there have been instances where the Big Ten champion a Big Ten at-large team has been able to get into CFP. But here's the other important question I have to follow up on is, do you think Penn State has a chance this year or in coming years if you look at the current state of Penn State?
So when you made the comment, Deeparad, about their recruiting status against Michigan in particular, I think it's pretty comparable. So Ohio State has obviously owned the conference, both on the field and in the recruiting rankings. And Michigan has been much better in the last few years and challenged Ohio State, but hasn't matched Ohio State's talent in recruiting. But Penn State has been very close to Michigan. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they have recruited top 10 to 15 classes in the last 4 years under James Franklin. So their talent is on par with Michigan. They beat Michigan in 2017. They did lose in 16 and 18, but they beat Michigan 2 years ago. So in regards to this particular team that's going to hit the field, they're, for the first time under James Franklin, going to be extremely strong, and their strength is going to be on defense. They may have the best defense in the Big Ten, along with Michigan State, but offensively, they just have question marks all over the place. They bring back Ricky Slade at running back, who's a good back, and they have a top 10 running back that they recruited out of Louisiana who's backing him up. Noah Kane, another kid who got into some trouble, but he should be back. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Their wide receivers, aside from KJ Hamler and Pat Fryermuth, who's a really good tight end who caught 8 touchdowns last year, their wide receivers were lacking last year. They had poor wide receiver play, and they don't have much coming back outside of Hamler and Fryermuth. So the wide receivers are questionable. The running back depth is questionable. The offensive line's decent. The quarterback, obviously, is the most important position, and they've got a complete unknown in Sean Clifford. They thought that Tommy Stevens was going to be the guy, and he transferred, went to Mississippi State. So they're a team that has a quarterback that's a complete unknown, and wide receivers that were very, very marginal last year and may not be better this year. But if you believe in defense,
Right.
Penn State certainly has a chance.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like this is the best chance that Michigan has to win the Big Ten this year. I know probably people have been saying that every year for the past 20 years, but this is really the best chance because this brand new coach for Ohio State, completely unproven in comparison to the previous coaches. Obviously, he's been coached and he's been the head coach for 3 games, and, comes from a good pedigree, but I feel like if it's not this year for Michigan, then it probably won't be their year for who knows how long. I mean, I know that people keep saying that every year, right? But it seems like it's been one of those dead, one-sided rivalries. Now they're going back to the big house, Ryan down the road, completely unproven quarterback, no matter how high he's rated. And I know that people have been talking some smack about Justin Fields his past offseason, but I think he's like the highest rated quarterback, one of the highest rated after Vince Young and Trevor Lawrence ever to be out of the 24/7 composite. So, I don't think that matters on the field, but I do think that he was rated the highest ever for some reason, right? I mean, I don't think that, that type of talent is just going to, not be good or relevant. But we've seen 5-star busts in the past, but it seems like that, and I don't know. I feel like if Michigan does not win this year, I do feel that Harbaugh's very much on the hot seat because the entire reason he was hired was so he would start winning against their rival, win the conference at least one year. And that just hasn't happened. The follow-up question I have to this, Mark, and this is very important as well, is do you think besides Michigan and Ohio State, we already talked about Penn State, do you think there's a legitimate contender or a dark horse legitimate contender for the Big Ten this year? And particularly, I guess, the Big Ten East, because the Big Ten West, everyone talks about Nebraska, but I don't think that they're there to win the conference yet this year.
Well, certainly understand, and I know you do, that if you win the Big Ten Western Division, regardless of how marginal you are, like a Northwestern last year that lost 5 games, you're playing in a 1-game playoff basically to win the conference. So it's not like you got to be the better team for a long time or for over the course of the season. You got a one-shot deal, and so a Big Ten Western Division team could be not as good as the Eastern champion, and you've got the one shot to win in Indianapolis. So the team, I don't know how you define dark horse, Deep Barat. I would need a little. Do you
like someone who you can really think has a chance of beating Michigan and Ohio State this year?
Well, we just talked about
that.
Penn State.
Penn State, yeah, I think that's probably. But you said it yourself. Like they have a lot of holes to fill. I feel like for the Big Ten to really be spicy, very interesting. It's the same problem with my conference, the Big 12, is that there's basically two front-running teams.
I agree.
And everyone else is kind of just filling in the slots.
That's what's wrong with college football overall.
Yeah, but even you said it yourself too, right? I mean, the SEC has a lot of state schools. They're always competing with each other. They're more or less on par with their expectations. ACC is supposed to be a football-heavy conference when you think of the likes of FSU, Virginia Tech, and what's the other one? Miami was also an all-time. You can consider them one of the great programs, not blue blood, but still a great program. But right now it's also one race right there. But I think we're going to see some upsets. College football won't be as spicy without upsets.
That's your term, isn't it, Deep Barat? Blue blood. That's your term.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy that word. I've always gotten into some heated debates about what is a blue blood and what constitutes a blue blood and what is a true blue blood. And I think I made a comment about this earlier, but I think the consensus blue bloods are the 8 that we originally get talked about or mentioned, which I think are very clear: Alabama, Notre Dame, Michigan, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Texas, Nebraska, and USC. That's right. So I think those are the 8. I think you more or less agree with me on that. Is that correct?
I do.
You don't believe?
There would only be
And
one. There would. I'm sorry, Deep Barat. There would be only one school that I think has a legitimate argument to be in that group, and that would be Penn State. But I'm fine with your list. A lot of people consider.
No, I agree. I was going to say that too. I think that Penn State and Tennessee are the 9th and 10th best college football programs. And a lot of people don't talk about Tennessee at all, but the reality is Tennessee is the 2nd best SEC program of all time.
Yep.
People don't talk about it, right? Because they've been really bad of late. But I mean, Tennessee is a historic program.
They have the second most
dominant in the
second most
in the
SEC
1990s,
championships. Second best winning percentage of all time in the SEC.
Which, speaking of which, do you think Tennessee will be back anytime soon, or not in the near foreseeable future?
Okay. So we've covered this ground, not with Tennessee before, but again, see, I hate to be so specific, but I need a clarification on what do we consider being back, winning a conference championship, or being a serious contender for
in the national picture.
In the national picture. Everybody's in the national picture. At Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, Minnesota's in the national picture. So is Kansas. We'll talk about anybody. So you mean being a 10-win team that's contending for a conference championship?
Yeah, absolutely. Or a college football play. Let's start with a 10-win season first and then go into a college football playoff contention.
Yeah.
Like, the Tennessee we used to see of the 1990s.
Sure.
The Peyton Manning era,
I would like to see more out of Jeremy Pruitt. We've only seen one season, but he certainly has better high school football played in Tennessee than in years past. It's getting better from what I understand. And he's recruiting well. That was his strong point. That's the main reason he got the job. And we certainly don't have evidence of it based on what happened last season, that they're going to get back into the fray. But if you look at the facilities they have, the resources, the name recognition, all of that, I would say that they would have a huge advantage. Huge is a strong word. Decided advantage over Kentucky, Missouri, South Carolina, the other teams in that division that are similar right now. They have a. It would be no surprise to me if Tennessee was winning 10 games in about 3 to 4 years.
Okay, that's a reasonable expectation. And this is the final kind of point, and then I'll let other people get on the line. But I want to know, after the downfall of the Alabama era, we don't know if Alabama is going to be down, period, after Nick Saban goes, right? But the assumption is that if Saban goes, let's assume that I don't want to assume things either, but I'm just going to assume, regardless, that Alabama won't be as good as they were under Saban, and
Sure.
potentially they'll go back to their losing ways that happened between 1993 and early 2000s until I think 2007 or 2008 when they started getting back into the groove again. Who do you think are the SEC teams of the next generation, like the team that's going to be the next powerhouse in that conference? And the three names I can think of right now are Georgia, Florida, and LSU, yes, but I also want to know, and this is very interesting as well, do you think Texas A&M can be in that mix as well? Because they still got 9 years on Jimbo Fisher's contract. So I kind of want to know that opinion of yours. Like, after Alabama, who's going to be that front runner in the conference from what you've seen and what you think you'll see in the future?
So, Deeparat, you asked me the question, then you filled in the slots. So basically, it's fairly easy to see that Georgia has emerged as an elite program. There's no question about they're recruiting as well as anybody in the country. They're winning as well as all but 2 or 3 other programs in the country. And so as long as Kirby Smart is on the sidelines, based on what we've seen to date, he's basically taken a Mark Richt program that was a top 10 to 15 program and made it a top 3 to 4 program. So they're the obvious choice. And the recruiting is crazy good at Georgia right now, as you know, and should continue to be so based on the footprint of talent there. I'm pleasantly surprised with Ed Orgeron's performance at LSU. They were extremely good last year. I did not think that he was good enough to coach that football program, and it remains to be seen. Certainly they haven't elevated to an elite level, but they were very, very good on that next tier with Michigan, Texas, that level last year. And so LSU certainly, but you touch upon the team and the program that first came to mind, and that's Texas A&M. Because Jimbo Fisher has won a national championship. I just did a Texas A&M preview today that has yet to post, but Texas A&M's recruiting ranking. So Kevin Sumlin was there, of course, starting in 2012, and he made a big splash with Johnny Manziel. And they were kind of the chic deal. And he had a couple of top 5.
That's one of my concerns, as a Texas fan,
Yep.
we have been running the state for 80 plus years in terms of, national championships, conference championships, everything.
Sure.
I mean, now they're not in the same conference, but the biggest threat to us outside of our own conference and our own schedule is Texas A&M potentially surpassing us with a national championship in that calendar year, and possibly, let's just say for a stretch of years, if Jimbo Fisher is really as good as they say he is. But the way that you've sounded is that there's a lot of depth in the SEC for any one program, from what I look at it right now, to really be the next Alabama. I think the closest one would be Georgia, like you said, simply because of the track record of Kirby Smart in the past as a coordinator and just learning under Saban and then converting that at Georgia. But man, I think the SEC will be wide open once Alabama leaves, like in terms of their dominance. And I think it's going to be very difficult for anyone to come into Saban's shoes and expect the same level of greatness from day one, because it'll be a new coach, a new system. And we at Texas, we had to go through the same crap. Like we lost Mac Brown and he retired, and the next incumbent who came, not the incumbent, but then the newcomer that came in, Charlie Strong really struggled. So, but like you said, it's a wide open race, I assume, right?
So you make a solid
Georgia, I guess.
So you make a solid point about the SEC's depth and strong depth. I'm not talking about Pac-12 depth. Pac-12 is a pretty deep conference in regards to decent programs, top 40 programs. The SEC has depth below Alabama, completely unlike the ACC has under Clemson. There's nothing there currently. But LSU, Georgia, Texas A&M, Florida, Kentucky's not going to maintain what they did last year, but they're a very good program. And these schools are all, even Tennessee at 5-7 last year, recruited top 15 to 20 classes over the last 3 to 4 years. So you make a good point in regards to, if you look at Bear Bryant's run ending, his last season was 82, but his last dominant teams were in 78, 79, in that range. Then the SEC from that point until this Nick Saban run had its little spurts where all sorts of teams won championships, shared championships. Tennessee, LSU, Georgia, Florida. Nobody was dominant for a long. The closest thing was Urban Meyer winning back-to-back or 2 and 3 year national championships in the SEC. But other than that, the conference shared championships all over the place amongst about 5 programs from about 1980 to 10 years ago. And I would expect that to return to form. There's just too much.
I think that's very accurate.
Yeah, there's just too much talent
too much depth
in the region. Yeah, there's too much talent in the region. Just tons of talent in the region, and there's just too much money and resources thrown by multiple schools that are on that, as you like to go back to the brand name and the prestige and the tradition. Whereas there's such a separation in other conferences where below that Alabama line, there's a handful of schools that have very similar capabilities, traditions, and resources to compete.
Absolutely. And one final point, and then I'll let you go on this, is that I saw someone post that the Big Ten has slightly more depth than the Big 10, and I would agree with that, but only because the Big 12 has 10 teams right now. And I personally don't like it because that means we have to play Oklahoma or whoever else is good that year twice if we make it to the Big 12 championship game. I personally think the Big 12 should have two divisions and have at least 12 teams, similar to how it was from 2000 to 2009, and even before that, 1996. When it was created, we had 3 national champions, 3 blue bloods, Texas, Oklahoma, Nebraska. Nebraska left, Colorado left, and now Texas A&M left. Like, we're pretty much, low on depth, Texas and Oklahoma. So I hope the Big 12 adds teams. I think that would be very interesting for college football. I don't know who they'd add because there's just not much available. But I do think that we could see the Big 12, hopefully in the next conference realignment, 2024-2025, having, when the new TV contract is coming up, having divisions, because I don't think that people like to play each other twice unless, it's an absolute must. But that's just what I have to say.
Good stuff, man. We appreciate you calling in, as always.
Perfect. All right, Mark. Cheers. Bye.
Deep Barat, big Texas fan, huge fan of college football. Good call from him. Good call from everyone who's called tonight. We appreciate all the phone calls, and the live chat is rather lively tonight, as it always is. Tennessee is a joke. Tennessee currently is a joke. They are a joke right now. All time, not a joke. Not a joke. Top 10 all time. Top 10 range all time. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Of course, we're here each and every day. We've uploaded videos each and every day, usually 3 or 4. So please check them out. It's what we love to do, and hopefully you enjoy it as well. I made a list. I can't get to it anyway, of content that I would like to deliver to you each and every week during the football season. Deep Barat made reference to this. I got to put together a live stream schedule, which is very difficult with my work schedule to make it at times that would be accessible to most of you. Clemson Alum 98, good to see you on the line. David Greenshield, good to see you on the line as well. Dijon McDonald, 863 Kane, Ian McAllister as well. So we'll try to work on a live stream schedule. I know I just throw these out there at times, and I had plans that were canceled, so we decided to strike up the live stream. But I need to put together a schedule similar to if you were with me last college football season. We had a schedule. We stuck to it each and every week like clockwork, and I need to do that again this year for your convenience, so you know when we're going to be live, and also to bring in more audience. So certainly spread the wealth out there. Let people know that we're here talking college football each and every day. We've got position previews all over the place, so if there's a particular position, we probably covered it if it's a top 15 to 20 program. Man, we looked at Florida State, Clemson, Miami. Oh my goodness, a lot of other teams besides that. Boston College and Syracuse. I'm thinking about the ACC right now. In the Big Ten, Ohio State, Michigan, on and on. Nebraska, Penn State, broke down positions at Oklahoma, Texas, TCU, West Virginia, Georgia, Kentucky, Florida, Alabama, Auburn, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, all sorts of teams, LSU, USC. Had a Stanford fan, was very excited that we had a Stanford schedule ranking and record projection, and it made me feel bad because I thought we used to be all over Stanford football because we had a Last Word on College Football guy and somebody from SB Nation that we have on a regular basis talk Stanford football, but no Stanford contribution. But I will do some Stanford football as I get to all the teams. And for those of you who have not had the fun of being with us during a college football season, oh my goodness, we go nuts from about 10 a.m., which I don't know that I'm necessarily going to be up and at 'em and broadcasting at 10 a.m. like I did this past football season. But by noon, we're watching the games. We're watching the games at noon. I'm going to be releasing my predictions on the Voice of College Football community link, and we're going to have our eyes on all the games starting at noon, as we always do, noon Eastern time, and we cut in with all sorts of live streams all day after the noon games, leading into the 3:30 games. And then we get those 3:30 games kicked off, and we watch them. And then near the end of that 3:30 window, preparing for those 7 and 8 o'clock games, same thing. We come on with live streams, hear from you guys, and then we do a late night deal, watching the Pac-12 second half, and it's 2:30 in the morning, and we're still grinding away talking college football. So Saturdays are fun and exciting here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, and you guys make it all happen. 860-325-3687. And it looks like it might be a working night for me. So I am starting on the SEC with some team previews and posting Texas A&M and LSU very soon because I just recorded those videos. And we're going to go through the other contenders like Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, etc. before I move on to the Big Ten. I did have a special request for Purdue. So I will have to get the boilers, and I'll have to boiler up on Purdue and provide that season preview. In the season previews, I'm looking at that stretch of the last 4 years to see, combined with the recruiting rankings, how these programs are projecting. All right. Got a call coming in.
Caller 2 to decline.
It's Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who do we have on the line?
Hey, this is Darren.
Hey, Darren, how are you?
I'm doing good. I was wondering, you think Miami is going to beat Florida in their first game of the year?
Oh, well, I will make a prediction before the game. So rest assured there will be a prediction that I will make. Right now, I would say 60-40 Florida, but I would take the points. I would take Miami in 7.5 points. That's the last line I saw.
Yeah.
I think we're looking at like a 24-20 game.
Yeah, I'm like a Miami #1, Florida #2 fan.
Oh, are you really?
Yeah,
Well, that's tough.
yeah. In basketball, it's different. I'm Duke #1, but in football, I'm Miami #1.
Okay. You're one of those folks. You don't stick to one school,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm hoping that Miami does better this year than last year. Why is it that Miami they kind of got off the hook at the end of the season? You know, they had a great season until their last 4 or 5 games. You think it was quarterback, or you think it was defense? Because their offense was off the chain, in my opinion.
You're talking about
I
Miami?
hear that defense was a problem, but I mean, I hear it was their offense that was a problem, but I would say more it was their defense that was a problem.
We're
last
talking
year
about
in the last 4 games of the year.
we're talking about Miami.
Yeah.
Okay. So Darren, we've talked about this a number of times in regards to the Miami offense versus the defense. I can't think of another team in the country that had a bigger, larger discrepancy between performance, offense versus defense than Miami. Miami had a good running game, headed up by Travis Homer, ran up for almost 1,000 yards, very good receivers, but poor offensive line play, poor quarterback play, and by most advanced metrics, Miami had one of the 20 to 25 worst offenses in the country. They had more disruptive plays against the offense. They were ineffective on third down. They were ineffective in getting the necessary yardage on first and second down. They were just ineffective all over the place. They had a 50% passer completion percentage out of N'Kosi Perry and Malik Rozier. Very ineffective on offense. Now the defense, they were top 20 in the nation in scoring defense, and that's even with being placed in bad field position constantly. And they were a top 5 defense by most metrics. They created more disruptive plays than any team in the country last year.
That's good to know. So you think they'll be better this year than last year?
Yes.
I hear they got a new quarterback too.
Yeah, so my theory there is that they've got 3 quarterbacks who are all 4 and 5 stars, and you got to think the probabilities say that one of those kids can play. They just need to select the right one, and they need to get him ready for game 1 and develop him.
Are they trying to hide the quarterback that they're running? What I mean by that is, are they trying to deceive the people? I'm trying to state it the right way. You know, they don't tell you who they're going to play until they play them. Or are they just not sure who they're going to choose to play yet?
So it's a good point that you make. Here's my theory. My theory is that they just went to camp about a week ago. I think it was just last Friday. So I don't believe that they know the starting quarterback right this second. I don't think there's any way that they know. I think it's pretty much of a 3-man race. And they certainly came into August knowing who was first, second, and third. They had their evaluations from the spring, but they didn't tell us. But it's still a wide open race between those 3 kids. Now, once we get to the last 10 days of practice or so, I would think that they would have a pretty good idea who's winning that job and who's going to be the starter. Now, they could play it one of 2 ways. If they're concerned about team morale and stability and wanting the team to be on board with who the starter is, then they'll make that announcement. If they are more concerned with fooling Florida, surprising Florida, then they won't. And they'll make Florida have to prepare for 3 different quarterbacks.
Yeah, Florida State did the same thing last year.
Sure.
What do you think? I'm not a big fan of Florida State, but I want them to do better this year. You think their new coach is going to do better this year?
So we're talking about their new offensive coordinator? They've got a new offensive coordinator, Darren, in Kendall Briles. And the reason to be optimistic...
I thought they were moving their secondary coach into the coaching string.
We're talking about Florida State?
Yeah, Florida State.
So their head coach is Willie Taggart.
Oh, I thought they got rid of him.
Do we have some breaking news on Willie Taggart that I'm unaware of? When did this happen?
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, they
Maybe they'll keep. He wasn't good last year. I was hoping they'd
they
get
were
rid of him.
awful. They were awful. No, he's still there. And they
That
can't
means they're gonna have another bad season.
they can't be any worse than they were this past season. They really can't. I could with that type of talent. If they do worse than they did last season, then I will be campaigning for the Florida State job, because with top 15 talent on that roster, they have to go 8-4 at the worst.
Yeah, I'm wanting them to do better because I'm wanting them to be like the old days where when they were playing Clemson, it was like a neck-to-neck game.
That's right.
3-point game, et cetera, et cetera.
That's
They
right.
play like they played last year. Teams like Clemson will end up whooping all over them.
That's right. Well, Darren, we appreciate the call.
Yeah.
You have a great night.
Yeah, you too now.
Thank you so much.
For the call.
Appreciate that. Willie Taggart, still the head coach. I thought I missed something there. I thought maybe there was late breaking news, but I figured that maybe somebody might have mentioned that. All right. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Talking it up. We appreciate all of you on the line. Reminding everyone that we do have the super chat on 863-Kane. Yeah. We got the super chat on. You can always contribute to the channel a number of ways. Please like the videos. If nothing else, like the videos, comment, subscribe, and share the videos out there on social media. So I got to assume that all of you guys are on Twitter and Facebook, and those are the two main ones. So please share the videos. And over the next several days, we've got some exciting videos coming out. Texas A&M and LSU previews. Got a Clemson secondary position preview coming out, and also an ACC preview. My predictions will be up before the season starts. Miami and Florida are kind of testing my procrastination, because I usually procrastinate on the predictions, and then it turns into making predictions the night before the first game. But they're really pushing me with this week 0 business. I know we've always had week 0, but it's usually Colorado State and Oregon State, or Air Force and San Diego State, or whomever. I remember a couple of years ago it was Colorado State and Oregon State, and I forget the other week 0 game, but they're usually fairly insignificant. But they're really pushing me this year to get those predictions in, because we got a week 0 game that matters big. And so I got to jump on these predictions.
Or 2 to decline. The call will start at the beep.
Okay, it's Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Welcome to Mark Rogers Football, Mark.
You're going to welcome me to Mark Rogers Football? What are you changing the name of the
I
channel?
wanted to do it officially one time.
Much appreciated. Professionally done, George. Well done.
Thank you very much. Man, can you believe it's 3 weeks away to football?
Yeah, this is a Saturday, is it not? What's the date today? It's the, man, I'm losing track of time. It's the 3rd. Yeah, we got 3 weeks. Wow.
3 weeks.
3 weeks from right
I
now, we'll
really
be
think
watching
Florida-
football.
I think Florida has been really disrespected in their position in this game. People talking about a 7-point spread when it should be 14. But I guess it's a rivalry game. Anything can happen. But Miami, my gosh, you would think they won the college football playoff last year listening to them talk. They're pretty confident. He just doesn't have a quarterback or offensive line, last I heard.
Well, it's in their DNA, George.
Yeah, it is. I'm going to miss them. I don't know what to do after the game. I have no reason to really keep bothering them anymore.
George, you've got some fans on the live chat.
You're right. I'll have to jump in there, especially if we win. All right.
I see your latest prediction
Miami's
here,
got a
too.
good team. Huh?
I see your latest prediction here, too. Breaking news, Florida beats Miami 41-17.
I actually posted a video on that on my channel. You can see I'm an old burned out veteran at Portland, Oregon.
You've got a channel?
a guy came over the other day and he showed me how to download something called TubeMate.
Okay.
So I download all the videos from YouTube, and then I downloaded something called Producer Director, and then I downloaded an MP3 converter. This is on my silly $100 telephone. And Mark, I sliced and diced and stole people's shit and put other people's music on it and made my prediction video. It's pretty good. I think you'll like it.
Okay, I'll have to check that out.
It's a major production.
I will not, I'm sorry, I will not be able to comment to your channel quite as often as you comment to mine, George.
Absolutely. And you don't have to comment at all. We can keep it on the cup.
Okay. All right.
If you want to steal me my predictions or anything, go ahead. I won't say nothing.
I get to steal your predictions and take them for my own?
I just can't imagine Miami staying within 7 points of us. I just can't.
That's very tempting, George, for the offer to steal your predictions.
Oh, I know. You know me, man.
Very tempting.
I'm going to be right one of these days. One of these days, I'm going to be right. It's the law of averages. One day I'm going to be right.
Yeah, keep at it.
My friend told me I should make 20 prediction videos with different scores and then just upload the one that's right and show how I called it.
There's a TV show that I saw one time, an episode on a TV show where a guy had a scam going, and he would send out baseball predictions, and he would send them, and he would like, if the Yankees were playing the Red Sox, he would send out 100 cards that said the Yankees are going to beat the Red Sox tonight. He'd send out another 100 cards that said the Red Sox are going to beat the Yankees. And so, of course, 100 got it right, 100 wrong, and he would forget about the 100 that got it wrong, and then he would focus on the next 100, and he'd throw them another prediction and split the audience again. And then after 3 or 4 baseball games, somebody thinks, oh, he picked all the games right. I better throw this guy some money.
Exactly. In this day and age of social media and deep fakes and stuff, you really gotta, it's buyer beware.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
That's what you get. Why you got to stay here, where the truth is proclaimed.
I'm extremely excited about this season coming up. I don't know if it's Texas or Ohio State or Oklahoma or Oregon or Washington or USC or Florida State or Miami or Florida or LSU. This is going to be great.
Okay.
Can't wait
with
to see
you.
how this settles out when the dust settles.
I don't know what you're talking about, but it sounds good. Those teams will all be playing
I'm just saying,
in a few weeks.
Every conference has a bunch of great open races, and I can't wait to see it.
Open races, really?
Right.
We have open races.
It could be Washington. It could be Oregon. You know, it could be LSU. It could be Florida. It could be Georgia. It could be Alabama. It could be Auburn on a good day.
Okay.
Could
Open
be Miami.
races.
Miami should be able to beat Clemson by the end of the year. I'm not giving Clemson a free pass, or FSU. Those guys are loaded.
All right, George.
All right, later.
Have a good one. Open races in college football. Clemson is an open race in the ACC. It's wide open. We have no idea who's going to win the ACC. The SEC, we have no idea. It's an 8-team race in the SEC. Open race. Open race in the Big Ten. No idea who could possibly win the Big Ten. Big 12. Open race. I think the Big 12 media had like at least 7 teams selected that could possibly win the conference. Open race in the Big 12. Wide open. Wide open. I would love to see it, but can't sell me on the open race argument in college football. Not been the case. Deeper Rot does like Oregon State to win the Pac-12. There's your sleeper of all time. All right, everyone. I believe we've hit that time. What do you think? Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Please help me build the channel. You know to do all those good things like the videos, comment, subscribe, and share the videos as well. We've got a number of announcements to make concerning our predictions, and we're going to be able to find a viewer comments reaction. That's going to be right here. So rest assured, you're going to be able to take part in our viewer comments reacts videos each and every week. And what I need to do is make sure I don't bite off more than I can chew, because that has certainly happened in the past. I've started some season previews. I'll make all my predictions. And I've contemplated for months, do I do a 24-hour live stream leading into the season? I thought about doing it the week of media days, doing 24 straight hours of college football coverage live. And then I thought maybe we do it the Thursday into the Friday. So, of course, the week 0, we'll slide that through. And then the next weekend, week 1, most of the games are on Saturday, but of course they're Thursday and Friday games. Maybe between pregame, maybe going from pregame Thursday night through the games on Thursday night, all the way around the clock into Friday, into the Friday night games. Maybe that's our 24-hour window in which we would see how long I could possibly sit here and talk. And then maybe I just get up from time to time and you could see me like, this is not my bedroom, people. This facility is not owned by me. So I'm just basically thinking, yeah, maybe I just take my breaks and you guys just run the live stream, just run the live chat while I take my power naps. Anyway, we might do a 24-hour live stream. Who knows? We appreciate everyone on the line tonight. Great phone calls from everyone involved. We appreciate all the comments, so I appreciate the great contribution of comments for the support. People say, Mark, go get them. You're doing a great job, blah, blah, blah. Appreciate those. But I also love, thanks 863 Kane, like the video. Thank you so much for mentioning that to everyone. But I also enjoy the debate. So certainly if you don't agree with something that I threw out there, let me know and we will talk it over right here. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Everyone have a sensational, fabulous Saturday night.